Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, and I ran the Music City Marathon twice, not in the same day, in a couple of years. And in preparation for running the marathons, we would run some smaller races together, 5K races, 3-mile races, Muddy Buddy races. One of the things I learned about running is that you can't judge a book by its cover. One day we were running one of the races in Nashville, and there was a little couple running just ahead of us. Looked like they were in their mid-70s or so, just really cute, kind of shuffling along. And we talked about how neat it was to see them running and how admirable it was that at their age they would still be out there. And then after a little while, we decided that was enough of us being condescending. And so we just passed them and went on in the race till we got close to the finish line. And all of a sudden, right at the finish line, here they come just flying by us, this little couple, and beat us and embarrass the daylights out of us. Life is just like that sometimes. You think you've got the race in hand, you think you've got things under control, and all of a sudden something just comes flying by. I get a doctor's report that was not as good as I thought it was. There's layoffs at the job. My family is going through struggle. Whatever it is, there's something that just changes this neat little race I thought I was running, and everything is turned upside down. I've lived like that. You've probably lived like that. And sometimes we just have to stop and figure out what we do if the other rats are faster. We're going to talk today about having boundaries, putting things in place, helping us to live in healthy ways when life is flying past us. To kind of set the stage for that, let me suggest 3 things to you. Number 1, not every crisis is your crisis. You don't have to take everything on. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is simply say, no, thank you. I choose not to be drawn into that battle. Number 2, there's no time like the present. I don't have to live in the past, and there's enough stuff in the future that'll be there when I get there. I'm not going to borrow from tomorrow the worries for today. Jesus said, focus on today. Tomorrow has enough problems of its own. And finally this, remember who really controls it all. It's not your race. It's God's race. Hebrews says, let's lay aside every weight and focus on the race that is laid before us. We're going to talk about that today in an episode that I call, What If the Other Rats Are Faster? I'm Dr. Mike Courtney, and this is Extending Branches.
Welcome to Extending Branches, a mental health podcast committed to helping people recover hope, find healing, and experience growth. Extending Branches is a twice-monthly podcast from Branches, a nonprofit dedicated to compassionate mental and emotional health care rooted in Christ-centered values. Your host is Dr. Mike Courtney, founder of Branches. He is an author, speaker, and pastoral counselor who leads honest conversations about faith, emotional health, and real-life growth. Before we jump in, a quick but important note. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a replacement for professional counseling. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts or facing a mental health crisis, please reach out to a licensed professional or seek immediate help in your area. If you want to learn more about Branches or explore support options, you can visit branches.org. We're really glad you're here. Welcome to Extending Branches.
I'm really excited for this guest. Debi Russell is a NCCA certified pastoral counselor. She has been with Branches almost from the very beginning. She's been here a long, long time. And I say this to her all the time. She never asked me what I mean by it, so I don't know if I can even explain. But she is the poster child for Branches, for someone who just comes in with a heart to help people and finds a way to do that. I thought nobody would be better to talk to us about boundaries and living in a fast-paced society than Debi. And so, Debi Russell, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Speaking of fast-paced society, you're coming in here right from a full day of seeing clients.
Yeah, I saw 6 clients today and rolled right in for this conversation. So I think most of us live that kind of life these days where it's just thing to thing.
Yeah. Well, the difference in you and me is you live that kind of life with a smile on your face. I would be frowning and fussing and fuming and all kinds of things.
Yeah, well, I like it. I like
that's a good place to start. So let me just ask you that question. How do you manage? You do it very well. I watch it. You do it very well. But how do you manage being a professional woman, a mother, a housekeeper, a wife to Scott, a public speaker, all of the plates that you spin. How do you handle all those things?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I've always been great at it. I have learned, the advantage of being north of 50 is you've learned some things. I think in my 30s, I was...
Thank you for confessing that in front of everyone.
Listen, I like being north of 50. I have no problem with my age. But when I was younger, it was really hard. And I think it was because I did not set limits on what I said yes to. And part of that was the people pleasing that I had back in that part of my life. Part of it was just there were a lot of things that sounded fun. I wanted to do all those things. They either were meaningful or so what I've had to learn to do is live with some margin and say no to some good things so that I can do the things in front of me well. And that's, it's hard. It sometimes feels like a loss to have to not be part of something exciting or something I'd like to contribute to. But you can't do everything.
Yeah.
And so just learning that there's limits we all have to live with if we want to do what's in front of us well.
That's good. I used to say to Jacob, my youngest son, when he was growing up, Jacob, you can do anything you want to do. You just can't do everything you want to do.
Yes.
And you have to make choices.
Yes. Yeah. My mom said to me one time, and I think I was like in the trenches with little kids and all that, and I was feeling guilty or something about not being able to lead a women's Bible study I was asked to lead. And she said, Debbie, there is room in your life to do everything you want to do, but not at the same time.
That's
and I was like, oh. She's like, there's seasons. Like, you'll have a season to do that. Just this isn't your season. And that was such a good word. It was very encouraging to think, yeah, life is long. I don't have to do all the good things at one time.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of me learning how to have better margin and say no to things was that encouragement from my mom, like, you'll get there. This isn't your season for that.
That's good. Well, you know me. We've been friends for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I give names and titles to everything, and so I kind of chose a title for this episode. What if the other rats are faster?
I thought that was funny.
We're in a rat race world. Yeah. It just goes and goes and goes, and it doesn't seem like it's slowing down at all. If anything, it's kind of picking up the pace.
Yeah.
And you. The reason I wanted to invite you to talk about this is you do such a great job of teaching people, helping people to set boundaries and put those kinds of things in place. Yeah. Before we talk about how to do it, I want to talk about what if we don't?
Yeah.
What if the other rats are faster? What if you're just on this treadmill going, what kind of toll does that take on people that you've seen that aren't good at, as your mother said, doing things in the right season?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think what we put ourselves at risk for is burnout. Which, burnout is like a phrase people use to describe like how they feel on a Friday, but real burnout is something that actually kind of can lead to depression. It's sort of unmanaged stress, left unmanaged for too long, leads to burnout. And so that can look like, I think about irritability with reasonable demands. So people have reasonable needs, but you find them very irritating. That would be a symptom of burnout.
I must be in chronic burnout because I'm just irritated at everything.
I don't know. Maybe you need to come see me in my office.
I'll make an appointment.
Yeah. But that, because like when you're not in burnout, your kids need you to pack lunches. You're like, okay, I got to get that done. But people that are in that burnout phase, it's like, oh my gosh, everybody always needs something.
Yeah.
But it's just reasonable needs start to feel overwhelming. That would be a symptom of burnout. I also think when we get too burned out, we start isolating. So the things that actually give us life, like social connections at church, taking a walk in the neighborhood, going on a date night with our spouse, when you're in that chronic burnout phase of doing too much all the time, you start pulling away from those activities. And that would be another signal. Like if your relationships you're withdrawing from, you might be at burnout.
Well, those things just feel like one more thing
Yes.
to do. I gotta add that to the list. So
Self-care starts feeling like a burden. Like I don't have time to exercise. I don't want to prep my meals for myself. Like things that would actually care for you feel like that. One more thing to get done because you're doing too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the answer is simple. Just start putting boundaries in place, have something. But how do we start getting enough energy just to do that? How do we start moving in the right direction to say, it is time for me to start taking care of myself?
Yeah. Well, and I think, to say the answer is simple is true, but it's not easy.
Right.
right? Like it's simple, but it's not easy because we have feelings that kick in. I think for a lot of us, there's guilt and fear that motivate that rat race life. You know, there's this guilt that I'm not doing enough, I'm not achieving enough. Maybe if you're a man, like providing for your family and I've got to do more, or even as a woman in our culture, like I need to serve more, I need to give more in my church, right? So there can be guilt that makes it hard to set boundaries. Telling people no doesn't always feel good.
Right.
And so you have to address that. And then fear. Well, if I don't do those things, am I going to be left out? Am I not going to have enough? And so that rat race is kind of driven by emotions. And so I think before you start setting boundaries, it's really helpful to check in and be like, why don't I say no?
Yeah.
Because if you ask those good questions, then you can figure out what are you avoiding by basically doing too much, by not creating margin. Some people feel worthless when they're not busy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's tied to childhood things. So all of that is why counseling, I obviously believe, is important. If you're a person who has been doing this kind of rat race life and don't feel like you can see how to get out of that, you probably do need to sit down in a safe space and just explore, well, what is the underlying issue there that's keeping you tapped into that? But once you kind of get a handle on, okay, I've worked through some of these emotional things that are getting me stuck. How do you start setting boundaries? So I think the first thing is to literally look at your life on a calendar, whether that's your Google Calendar or a paper planner. I'm old school. I like my paper planner. I'll never go away from it. But get your calendar out and look at it. And visually, if every space is filled in, you got to start making room and getting some stuff off the spaces. And so you may have to outlive some commitments before you can get there. So it's like, well, you've been running the rat race. You might need to run it another month or something. But as commitments fall off, then don't put something else back on your plate.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. If you don't have enough margin, once a commitment ends, don't replace it. And I think what people do is they get a little breathing room and they think, oh, that felt nice. And then something comes along and they say, oh, could you volunteer for this? Or could you take on that project at work? And because you're feeling a little better, you're like, I've got room for that. And then you're right back on the rat race. Right. You're feeling better because you've got some things off your plate. So I think that's a big part of it, is just look at your life. And if every square is filled in, basically you've got something almost every night of the week. Every weekend is always full. That's not enough margin. We've already got a full work schedule, and then you've got sleeping. So then the rest of your time can't be chronically filled in.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the problems in this day and age is we get busy, not just today. We get busy 3 months out.
Oh, yeah.
3 months out. I'm looking at my calendar.
Yes.
Yes, I need some space, but I'm 4 months away from getting that break. So that's important to recognize that thing. Yeah. Can I don't want to interrupt your train of thought.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I do want to stop and just interject something here. The church, and you're deeply involved in your church. Very important to you. I'm very involved in my church. I think life is better with church. I think it is.
Yeah.
But it can be the worst culprit in this. I often think, people who don't have anything to do on Sunday except sit home, mow the grass. Man, what a great life. They got. How do you handle the church?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because it's not just making you feel good. It's important stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I think, again, that comes down to the idea that other people don't know your limits. You do.
Uh-huh.
So people at church are going to keep asking you to do things, right? There's always going to be ministry opportunities, serving opportunities, places to connect, because that's what church is there for, right? And like for the church to be the church, people have to do those things. But what it comes down to is one person can't do all the things. Mm-hmm. So it's accepting that there are places I'm going to get involved and places I'm not. And it doesn't mean I'm not saying those things are good. Right. I'm saying that's not my yes today. Yeah. Right. And so I think you don't have to be so definite, like all or nothing, where you're like, I'm only ever going to do this.
Right.
Because that makes your brain stressed too, to think, well, but what if I want to get involved in missions or what? But to remind yourself you have seasons. So like in this season of my life, with the responsibilities on my plate today, what I have the capacity to do. I think God calls us all to serve.
Yeah.
But there are seasons of our life where we have more space to serve and seasons where we have less.
Yeah.
So you need to find some place to serve in your church and in your community. But like in this season, I'm a quasi empty nester. I have a grown child that still lives with me, but I'm not parenting her.
Yeah.
So I'm basically an empty nester. I actually can serve more than I did when I had teenagers that I was constantly carpooling everywhere.
Right.
Like that took up a lot of my space. And so like I have a season now. And so I think part of like with the church is not comparing what one person's doing to what you have the capacity to do.
Yeah.
Because we tend to do that with each other to like, if it's someone I respect or admire,
Right.
like, oh, well, this is what they do, so I should be doing that.
Right.
But they live a different circumstance than you do. So asking God, really, like seeking the Lord and saying, in light of my circumstances with the capacity that I have, what's a good yes for me?
Yeah.
And not just saying yes because other people are.
That's good. And it's his church. And so if he needs something done, he'll find somebody to do it. I don't have to take the place of God and do everything.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing that comes up a lot with in client work is that someone will say, well, here's my limit as far as I can tell, my money, my time, whatever. But here's the need.
Right.
And it's a real need. They're not, it's not like a fake idea. It's like this person really needs this or this church does. And then there's the gap.
Yeah.
And I say, well, you're going to have to fill the gap with what God does, not what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Because God is limitless.
I need to just do more then.
Right. Well, if I don't do it, no one will. Well, that's kind of like not trusting God to be God.
Good.
He's limitless. We're limited. So when I hit that gap, I have to trust him that other people, and also sometimes he fills the gap with himself.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Just,
I mean,
right.
like somebody needs more encouragement when God gives them that and it's not coming from you, you need to go to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's trusting him to bring the right resources and people where you hit your limit. He's not going to be limited.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. It's really good. So we throw words around a lot that sometimes we probably use them so much we forget what they mean. And boundaries is one of those. We kind of talk about you need to set more boundaries. You have healthy boundaries. One of the things is I think you and I probably talked about this. There's a book that I've referred people to a lot, couples particularly, Codependent No More.
Yeah.
I will refer a couple to that, and they'll come back in 2 weeks, and he'll say to me, she's turned into the meanest woman I've ever known. She's taken not being codependent to the max.
Right.
There's also, start talking to people about boundaries, and then they just put these rigid things in place, and they're no fun. What do we mean by boundaries, and what's kind of a good, balanced, healthy way to look at them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because a lot of times people say, I've started setting boundaries. I told them they can't talk to me that way.
Yeah.
I said, that is definitely not a boundary.
Right.
Like they actually can talk to me the way they want.
That's sharing an opinion.
That's you trying to control somebody else. So to think about boundaries, they are a limit you are creating for yourself. Boundaries define what you're going to do or not do.
Yeah.
They actually don't need anyone else's participation. So if the way you're thinking of a boundary involves someone else participating, that's actually an agreement.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Right? And relationships need agreements. Of course, like in marriage, you make a lot of agreements or with your children or friends. But a boundary is not about getting the other person's buy-in. It's about recognizing you need to do something differently, and that's what I'm going to do. So it would sound more like, hey, I'm going to drive separately to church tonight because I know I need to get to bed early. And so I'm going to leave when I'm ready. And that way you guys can visit as long as you want. And I'm going home.
Yeah.
So that's just controlling you. You need no one's participation.
You need to quit standing around talking to everybody because I need to get home.
Right. That's an agreement you're trying to make. And in some marriages, that could be a reasonable agreement. But sometimes that's going to be experienced by controlled by others.
Yeah.
So you've just got to figure out, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Good.
And so that's a big part of boundaries. The other thing to think about in a healthy way is the whole point of a boundary is to keep the bad out and keep the good in. So like a little fence around your yard, and this is an example that is actually used in the book Boundaries. The fence around a yard keeps like the rabid dog from running into your yard, but it also keeps your toddler from leaving your yard, right? So it's protecting something good. So good things that we want to protect are like our attitude, our health, our money. Like these are resources God's given us, and limits actually protect the good, but they keep bad stuff out. And so they do two things always. And so if you're only thinking of a boundary as a way to like prevent something bad, then that's unnecessarily negative. There's also a reason to think about boundaries, like putting myself to bed is something that I need to do at night. And like lots of people struggle to put themselves to bed, but that's an internal boundary, like a boundary toward myself. Like I am going to go to bed at 9 o'clock because I need sleep. And so that's protecting my health.
Yeah,
it's keeping the good in. Like my health, I'm going to wake up and have good energy. I'm protecting that by going to bed. So it's a limit that I create for the good.
That's good. That helps me not to feel guilty about
Right.
setting boundaries. If I was just kinder, if I was willing to do more, always guilty. Instead, this is a positive thing.
Right.
I need to.
Yeah, there's a very proactive purpose in setting limits because, again, like you have them. So if you don't create limits for yourself, you're going to run into them either way. Like
Yeah.
if I don't go to bed, there's going to be a consequence. So I have to decide, would I rather put a limit on my freedom at night and go to sleep, or would I rather face the consequence of waking up cranky and low energy tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like the person I always say, did you wake up cranky? I said, no, I just let her sleep. So that's,
I know, Doris. You better take that back.
yeah, I need to put some boundaries around that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Well, you mentioned the book. What about the book? What are some resources? What are some places that you go to help people understand better about boundaries or to put boundaries in place?
Yeah. Well, the book Boundaries is by Cloud and Townsend. It's been around forever. It's a great book. And so it's like a basic understanding from a biblical lens. I particularly like that for Christians because, again, a lot of Christians did grow up in an environment where boundaries felt like you were kind of bad for doing that. And so they have some shame or guilt around setting limits. And so the book really dispels all that and helps you to understand that boundaries are healthy and biblical and they're not something God doesn't want you to do. He wants you to set those. So that's a great book. It also has a workbook you can get that comes with it. There's a ongoing organization in most communities called Celebrate Recovery. That is a great place to go and work on boundaries because a lot of us that struggle with boundaries have in our history some codependency, perhaps addiction in your family of origin, perhaps some other kind of trauma or chaos that you grew up in, and that can make it really hard to know how to set boundaries as an adult. And so Celebrate Recovery is for all of life's hurts, habits, and hangups, and that's a great place to go. They usually have a codependency group there with people working on that. And so like being in a group environment to work on that can be really helpful because you hear in other people things you're blind to in yourself.
Yeah. No.
But then you hear that and you're like, oh, they need to say no to their mother-in-law. Oh, I need to say,
Yeah. It's always easy to fix other people's problems.
Correct.
Yeah.
So groups kind of highlight maybe what's going on in you. So those are, I think, two resources that are really readily available for most people and something you could find in whatever community you live in.
Yeah. Good. Debbie, thanks. You always do a great job. Whatever I ask you to present on, you always do a great job.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate it. This is fun.
I'm glad we've been friends for 20 years now.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were both 12 years old when
That's
we
right.
started.
We were young.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not scared about being 52. I have no trouble.
That's good.
Yeah.
Debbie's a great counselor. She does a great job in talking about these kinds of issues and all kinds of issues. And these are things that we need to hear. We need to address. We live in a rat race. Things are fast and they're not slowing down. And what if the other rats are faster? How do we live with that? There's three things I take away from our conversation today. The first one is that the boundaries are a good thing, that you're not just keeping out negative things, but you're putting good things in a protective place. And it's helping you to be a better person so that you can do more. Here's the second thing that I think is really important to remember as we're talking about all of this. Boundaries are about what you can control. They're not about what other people do or about what other people say. They're about what you can control. And then here's the third thing. It's God's world. It's His place. It's His church. It's His family. It's His job. Whatever it is, God's in charge of this. So whatever the lack is, whatever the gulf is between what needs to be done and what's being done, that's in God's hands. He'll help you to do what you're supposed to do, and He'll take care of the rest of that. Thanks so much for being a part of this podcast. I hope that part of what it does is help you to live in a healthy way and put boundaries in place in the right place. If your boundary is not listening to more podcasts, don't pay attention to that. We want you to follow this. We want you to be a part of that. If you'd like to know more about Branches, you can go to branches.org or to our Facebook page. We'll put notes in the show notes that help you know more about how to do that. We would like for you to like and subscribe, whatever it is that you do to podcasts, in order to continue to follow this. We are connected to the vine. Jesus said, I'm the vine and you're the branches. And boundaries, healthy living, whatever it is, only happens to the extent that we stay connected to the vine. So our goal is to extend the branches to as many people as possible so that you and others can be connected to the vine. Thanks for being a part of Extending Branches today. We'll see you in a couple of weeks on this podcast.